Once again, this year was absolutely killer for action RPGs. Every year, I do a top 10 of what I think are the best action RPGs of the year, best combat systems, best gameplay. Also, if you love those things, make sure to sub because you'll get a bunch of cool videos related to combat and RPGs, gameplay, and all the sorts. Let's get into the list. These aren't in any particular order, but starting with the number 10 spot, we're gonna have Rise of the Ronin. Team Ninja always comes out swinging with combat systems, and Rise of the Ronin was an absolutely splendid time. The parrying in this game is so crazy. The dopamine rush you get when you're doing it is just great. You can run around the whole open world with a variety of different weapons and take on your enemies. It is an entire blast every time you get into a boss fight. I really enjoyed Rise of the Ronin's combat system, and it's not as hard as some of their other games, right? The game even has difficulty options, so plenty of accessibility here to have some fun. The number 9 spot is Stellar Blade, and this is probably my personal favorite action combat system of the year. I love how you could just throw around bosses. I think they did the staggering mechanic very good in this game. I got a little sick of having to drop a stagger meter and a boss just kind of sitting there in previous games. Not here with Stellar Blade. You could just send a boss flying across the arena. And it's almost like a little mix of an action combat system and some Souls influence, right? It's not a Souls-like, but it has that step-by-step encounter where you're basically watching the enemy, what they're doing, you gotta learn their moves, and the parrying is just exquisite. I absolutely loved Stellar Blade. The number 8 spot goes to Visions of Mana, and this game was just wonderful to play through. I think it's one of the most slept-on games this year. The game in its entirety was fun to play, but the combat was really cool, so you'll definitely be dodging around, jumping around, and trying to avoid enemies, but that's not the main point of this combat system. It's team building. Building your characters in the way you want, checking their stats, and all that goodness is going to be a really good time. So the RPG mechanics come first before the reactive action, but it's really fun in both regards, and the game has a numerous amount of boss fights that I thought were just designed very well. Visions of Mana, I totally recommend it. The number 7 spot goes to Granblue Fantasy Relink. Now, at first, I actually didn't really like this game, but that was more based on the demo, and even then, the full game has a few issues for me personally. This game is a lot about endurance. You're gonna go in there with yourself or with some party members, because it's kind of a co-op game, and you're gonna see how fast you can take down these bosses, right? And there is some challenge with the later ones, but what I don't really like is dropping the boss down with a stagger meter. They don't flinch too much, but in terms of your character kits and combos, they're really good. There's a lot of characters to choose from, and they all feel very unique, and you have to get their kits down to take down these bosses fast enough. So I think a lot of people will definitely enjoy the combat system here, and I ended up growing to like it a lot more than I did back in the demo. The number 6 spot is X Nordics. This game is another slept-on game, I think. The action combat here is absolutely fantastic. There's a new duo mechanic where you only have one other partner, one other party member, and Adol and Karja work together to do a lot of synergized moves, and it just flows fantastically. Lots of cool parrying, lots of cool abilities you could do together. I love how they block together and then just will go into a complete super move. This is a new engine for Falcom and for Yi and specifically, so the animations in combat are just more fluent, right? You could see what's going on more compared to the previous games, and I think it just flows really well. I had an absolutely fantastic time. The number 5 spot goes to Zenless Zone Zero, and I hate putting a gotcha on this list, but you can't forget the combat systems that are this good. The action combat here is one of the most fluent, stylish combat systems I have seen in a while. The parrying, on how you use your teammates to swap in and out to parry, is so good. The sound design is something else, I'm telling you. And overall, I can't not recommend it as an action combat system. It's just that fun. So it sucks the game is a gotcha, but wow, is there a lot of personality in this combat system, and it's always a fun time to play. The number 4 spot is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, it's kind of a mixture of its ATB, turn-based, and action, you know, but it comes action first, I think. You're still moving around, you're still dodging, and it's all in real time. So this game really improved from Remake, in my opinion. It still has a lot of the fun things from Remake, but now there's synergized moves, so you can team up with your party members and do specific moves. The dodging is much better, you're much quicker. There's some parrying in here now, so So there's a lot to love in Rebirth. The game is absolutely humongous, and you'll be fighting a lot of the time, and it really didn't get old. The number 3 spot goes to Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, I would describe this combat system as freedom, right? You could knock a troll into a bunch of trees, and your environment and enemies will just react to whatever you do. The physics are just absolutely fun. It's really great to upgrade your character and try different things, from spells to bows to great swords. There's a lot to love here in Dragon's Dogma 2, and I have to recommend it. The number 2 spot goes to Sandland, and I really liked this one because you're in robots and vehicles most of the time. Like, you could fight on the ground, and it's not the craziest thing in the world, but it's super cool how you could build your own vehicle and go around and just fighting tanks, right? It's a different style of action combat, and I also love how you could be driving around your vehicle, hop right out, and fight enemies on foot. There's actually a lot of fun to add here. I think it's a little slept on as well. If you enjoy the anime or any of Toriyama's designs, I would definitely give this game a chance. It's a really fun combat idea. The number 1 spot is Black Myth Wukong, and I feel like a lot of people loved this game more than me, right? I think the combat is really well made. The only problem I have with it is the bosses you kind of have to tackle like a Souls boss, right? You memorize their moves, you dodge around, and you can't attack them for too long. But Wukong here likes to swing his staff consistently, right? He's almost built for an action game, so mob enemies almost work better sometimes than the bosses, but the bosses are so cool, right? So it's a little bit of a mixed bag for me, but definitely leans towards good. And I know this game blew up and a lot of people absolutely love this combat, so it needed to be on this list. This entire list isn't necessarily what is my favorite, but what I think is some of the best combat systems of the year. So Black Myth Wukong gets this spot. And again, none of these are in any particular order. These are just 10 games I think were the best action RPGs of the year. I also got to throw a shout out to Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, some of the best bosses I've ever played in a video game. The new abilities and the new weapons are also fantastic. So not a full-fledged game. I'm not Jeff Keighley. I'm not going to put it on the best list, but definitely a little shout out on the side for Erdtree. Another quick side shout out I want to do is for Path of Exile 2. It just released in early access and I just made a review on it. I'll leave it linked down below if you guys want to go check that out. But it's really good in terms of its combat, and building your character is kind of outrageous. Like, there's so many ways you could build your character. The skill tree is bigger than my house. So it's a lot of fun. Still in early access though, and it's not fully complete, so I didn't want to put it on this list, but at the same time, wanted to give it a little shout out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Every year I'm going to do the top 10 best action RPGs, so definitely subscribe if you want to stay tuned, and I hope you guys have the best day ever. I will see you very soon in the next video. Peace.